let me start. Why don't you each just take 1 minute just to introduce yourself and just tell us what you've been doing for the past 10 years. Why don't Steve you start, then Victoria, and then Kim. Steve, why don't you start?
Oh, what I've been doing for the last 10 years. Well, yeah. Lots. Let's see. This year, today, I heard that, and my study was published in Nutrients, a big journal. And that's on modifying diet to reduce risk of Alzheimer's disease, where I'm the senior author of only 2 authors on this paper. And we nailed it on which foods increase and decrease the risk of Alzheimer's disease and all the mechanisms why. Not going back quite 10 years, but last November, I published a study on advanced glycation end products and their how they basically, if you reduce eating the advanced glycation end products, what happens is your brain starts working better because the neuroinflammation goes down. And then this past month, I just published one on lipopolysaccharides, the most inflammatory molecule around. And that's found, well, in animal products, let's say, meat, chicken, fish, and cheese, and so on. But I mean, 40 nanograms is enough to blast your inflammation up in your body and in your brain. And people are eating over 1 million when they have, cheese casserole. Mm-hmm. So, okay, that's my last 3 months. I think that's enough for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, everybody, I'm Victoria. And in the last, 12 years, I went from being just Victoria Moran to being Main Street Vegan, wrote that book, Main Street Vegan, in 2012. And that was followed by the Main Street Vegan podcast, which is out there and has been for all this time. And Main Street Vegan Academy, where I train and certify vegan lifestyle coaches and educators. And we have Main Street Vegan Productions. We did the film in 2019 documentary, A Prayer for Compassion, about spirituality and food choices. And we are now working on a feature film, which is incredibly exciting, a wonderful story with a dazzling surprise ending about a cow who escapes from a slaughterhouse. And also in the past 10 years, back in 2016, I was voted PETA's sexiest vegan over 50, and I'm now 74 and didn't think this was going to be 74. Nice to be here with everybody.
Thank you.
Well, hi, I'm Kim. And gosh, in the past 10 years, I basically turned my life from standard American diet to whole food plant-based. So really it's, I started my business 5 years ago. So really in the past 5 years, I went from, on my own journey of eating whole food plant-based and kind of started my blog to really kind of hold myself accountable, put my recipes out there in my journey. And it was kind of in that process, I was like, I really want to share this with more people. And so I quit my teaching job. Now I just teach online and started my business and my program, Plant Powered Life. I've got over 1,500 members in that program, and they're just doing amazing. Wrote my book, Plant Powered, because people kept asking me questions about eating plant-based and they just wanted to know everything. I was like, well, I can't tell you everything in 5 minutes, but maybe if I just kind of download my brain and put it in a book, I could hand it to you. And so published that last June, and that's been in the Amazon bestseller in the vegan diets category since it was published. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to.
Great, thank you. So to start off, Victoria, you said you turned 74. What
I did.
Yes. What has surprised you in terms of health and your body and how you feel and everything about being 74 that a 45-year-old might not realize?
Well, I think it starts about 50, certainly for women with menopause. I woke up at age 50 and I thought there had been invasion of the body snatchers because I felt like I went to bed with a nice flat stomach and a nice round bottom. And I woke up and it was like, wait, did those get turned around? And then I started looking at middle-aged women, at the gym. And it's like, you know what? That just happens. And of course you can do, you can work your abs and you can do these things, but there are certain things that are just hormonal and they just happen. And the cool thing about being whole food plant-based is that we're forestalling so many even genetically determined problems that could come up, to the point that either they don't happen at all or they happen later. But we're still getting older. Little things like, okay, you expect your hair is going to turn gray, so you'll either love it or you'll color it non-toxically, of course. But what you don't expect is gray hairs in the eyebrows and out your chin, and it's like, okay, whoever said old age is not for sissies was a genius. So it's this beautiful dance of acceptance and doing everything you possibly can on the physical level to live as youthfully as long as possible.
Great, thank you. Kim, you have used the phrase progress, not perfection approach for adopting a plant-based lifestyle. What exactly does that mean, and why do you use that phrase?
Yeah, I think I say that first of all because I needed that myself, because I am a perfectionist, and that's good and bad. The bad part is when you can't meet perfection, which is unattainable, then you feel like you failed, and then the only other option is all the other way. And I find that a lot of people that somehow come to me and find me are kind of in the same boat. They want to change their lives, they want to do all these things, but they've been in this, diet mentality of yo-yo back and forth, got to be perfect, can't be perfect, so I'll just eat all the terrible things. And it's this kind of black and white that people kind of get stuck in. And so to get them to feel successful and kind of in get more confidence and continue improving all the time, I find that just changing our mindset to more of, rather than black and white, right or wrong, perfect or not, let's just try to be better every day. A little bit better. Progress, not perfection. If you mess up, it's okay. Get back on the wagon. If you're just spend every day beating yourself up and shaming yourself for every mistake, you're going to be, you're not going to be successful like that. It's just this negative loop that's never going to stop. And so that progress, not perfection, is all about having a positive, loving, and graceful, having grace for yourself through, changing your habits, changing your lifestyle, learning all these new things, because it is hard. It's not always easy. And so you've got to have kind of a more positive outlook, rather than like, well, I wasn't perfect, so I'm a failure, I'll just give up. So progress, not perfection.
Thank you. Dr. Blake, you have a lot of books, a lot of things in your resume having to do with memory and dementia and Alzheimer's. So after doing all this research and focusing on this area, what is the bottom line? None of us want dementia. None of us want to lose memory. So what is the protocol? What exactly should we do to protect our memory, our brain, and our cognition so that we don't lose it?
Well, yeah, it's nice to see you again, Stephen.
You
It's been a
too.
while. Yes, keeping our brains sharp. That's what I do. I work at the Maui Memory Clinic with people, and I agree with Kim Murphy that we don't, when we see people, turn them into instant vegans. We help them to move toward a more healthy diet, and it's amazing how that can help, how much it can help just to ease the load a little bit on the brain. For instance, one lady came, she's a pharmacist, and she had post-COVID loss of concentration, basically. And so the first time we saw her, when we asked her a question, there was a delay, and then she could barely put the words together. Well, we got her to change a few things in her diet. She went a little bit more plant-based. And a month later, the delay was less, really noticeable. And 1 month later, no delay. And she was starting to speak and talk. And we see this all the time. And when quizzed, it turns out she's still eating meat and all kinds of not healthy for the brain things half the time. So I look at that as room for improvement. Just think, what could be in her future. And as she sees and her husband sees the improvement, then she's more committed to want to go further a little bit. And in answer to your question, Stephen, I just learned that today the nutrients review article that I'm senior author of came out. And it's out of preprint and in nutrients. We got through peer review. And that's on diet's role in modifying the risk of Alzheimer's disease. Pretty much exactly what you asked me. And that's now a free article for anyone to view. And the biggest risk factors we found, looking very carefully, were meat and processed meat. Those are the two biggest risk factors for Alzheimer's disease and also mixed dementia and vascular dementia. So those would be the top ones. And of course, all the other animal foods you could toss in there too. If, I mean, it'd be pretty easy if you wanted to get Alzheimer's disease, what to eat. And pretty easy if you didn't want to get Alzheimer's disease, what to eat, except for, compliance issues, the people's ability to change their diet and how that can happen. A whole food plant-based diet would be ideal. And it's not just food, of course. We do find that stress and anxiety make it difficult for people to think. And I actually have a nutrition protocol for people that reduces anxiety, and it's incredibly effective. And you'll never guess, it's a plant-based eating. And same one for depression. It's a little different, but it comes out about the same. We do encourage people to do active mental work, learning. And so our neuropsychologists can assign games to them, like card games of memory, or if processing speed is slow, ways to speed that up. And physical exercise is also highly recommended for getting better perfusion of blood, oxygen, nutrients into the brain. So that's like the recap, a little bit, kind of recap. Thank you.
Okay. Victoria, you have an acronym for living well at every age, a kind of formula for life. What is it?
Yeah, it's MEND. I had a grandmother who, with a needle and thread, could make any kind of rip or tear look like it had never been there. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if we could mend our lives the way she used to be able to mend a garment? And I was thinking, we really do have those tools in this whole food plant-based lifestyle. And a way that I have come up to remember them and practice them every day is MEND. M is meditation. And that's certainly classic meditation has so much going for it in terms of the literature, but it's really also a catch-all for stress management, focus, quiet, calmness, taking care of our emotional, attitudinal, mental self. E is exercise, which is practically a panacea. The amazing things that can happen with exercise, particularly now that we understand that on an evolutionary level, that the body, it takes care of us because the brain gives us the message, this person is viable, this person is moving. So secrete your hormones and mount your immune defense, which it wouldn't do if we were just being sedentary. And then N is nourishment, which is what we're all about. When I first came up with this, I said nutrition, but I think so many people interpret nutrition as little bottles in a vitamin shop, that nourishment is certainly what we eat and all the beautiful colors of a plant-rich diet. And even the way that we approach food, like drinking your water in a stem goblet instead of a plastic superhero's cup from the Taco Bell. I mean, it's just a whole other experience, makes you feel better about yourself, and it's another way to be nourished. And D in the MEND program is detoxification, which means certainly we can do detox kinds of things. There are all sorts of interesting programs. Heaven knows I've done plenty. But what I really think about in terms of detoxification is living every day in a way that helps those organs and systems of the body taxed with detoxification to be able to do their job well. So this is things like just not getting ourselves so toxic to begin with by eating certainly low on the food chain, eating plant-based, organic whenever possible, using natural products. And then also part of detox is sleep and sleep hygiene so that we can take care of that wonderful third of our lives.
Thank you. Kim, can you provide an example of a daily meal plan that is both satisfying and nutritionally complete for a plant-based diet?
Ooh, let's see. What did I eat today? Let's see. We've been kind of on the overnight oats train because they're so easy to batch prep for the whole week. And so this morning I had my overnight oats with apples and cinnamon and walnuts. So got the healthy omega-3s. And then let's see, lunch was leftovers from last night. I made it's kind of Southern and it's kind of first of the year thing, but we like to have it more often because I just really like it. But black-eyed peas, cabbage, and cornbread is kind of a Southern tradition for good luck. We always eat it on the 1st of January, but we usually have it every couple months. So that's what I had. So huge plate of food. I also actually had some white bean chili. I had a little bit of potato and white bean chili with that as well. I ate a lot. And then let's see, for snack, I had some clementines and some grapes. And then for dinner tonight, we had pumpkin pasta. So lots of vitamin A, beta carotene, spinach in there. Yeah, so lots of really hearty food that, and I love eating this way because I eat until I'm full. So that's just something that's really helped me stick with it because I'm not eating tiny portions or portion control or calorie counting. I'm eating and listening to my body and, listening to the signals it's telling me. And if I'm hungry, I eat. If I'm not hungry, I don't eat.
Right.
Kim, can I just jump in and
Yes.
ask how you make your cornbread?
So actually, it was the Plant Strong cornbread. So I do have a cornbread recipe in my program, Plant Powered Life, but I did actually, because they just came out with the Plant Strong, just came out with the cornbread recipe and a whole bunch of other stuff and pancake and waffle mix. So I bought a whole bunch of their stuff to try it. And it's really good. So I recommend their cornbread mix.
Kim, one more quick question. Just the people sometimes say that eating whole food plant-based diet is too expensive. I guess it depends what you buy and where you shop. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I find it actually less expensive because I'm buying staples. I'm not buying the processed foods, the fake meats and the fake cheeses and all the different newfangled things on the market. Yeah, those are expensive. But so is meat and dairy and other processed foods. Those are expensive. And so when you cut those out and you focus on whole plant foods, things like beans and grains, those are some of the cheapest foods. Even if you did, especially if you do dry beans, which I usually do canned beans for convenience, but dry beans are like $1 for a pound. They're so cheap. And then I do lots of frozen fruits and vegetables. So you can, and because what the biggest waste that people expense, I should say, is food waste. 40% of the food we buy at the grocery store, we throw away. So if you can cut down on food waste, that in itself is a huge savings. And so using lots of frozen fruits and vegetables, and they're flash frozen at peak ripeness. So you're really getting, all that nutrition locked in there. And then they last, and they're there when you need them, and you can throw them in the microwave or steam them or cook them however you want. And it's a huge savings. So my family of 4, when we first went whole food plant-based, I saved hundreds every single month on our grocery bill, so our bill went down. Now, when you first start out, you may have to buy some extra spices and some things that you're not, kind of fill up your pantry. So that in the beginning might be an initial, if you don't already have some kind of basic things like that, might be an extra expense. But I mean, I find that it's actually a lot cheaper.
Thank you. Dr. Blake, what has your real world experience been? In other words, for the people that eat whole food plant-based diets, do they all live to 100 in perfect health? Do they still get heart attacks? Do they still get cancer? Do they get diabetes? Do they get obesity? I understand the theory and I understand it's better than this standard American diet, but what's actually happening? Are people still getting diseases? Are they getting a lot less? what is your real world experience with actual people that do follow this and also the ones that don't, but specifically the people that do follow this?
Well, if people are really eating whole plant foods and a healthy diet like that, it's not quite that simple. We also need to keep our saturated fats below about 12 grams per day. If people are doing both of those things, then what we see is that the blood cholesterol goes down and the risk of heart attacks goes down and the clogging of the arteries goes down. So the risk of strokes and heart attacks just kind of bottoms out there. It may take a couple of years for cholesterol of 280 to go down to 180, and then maybe a couple more years to settle down a bit further. But that's a huge difference. As you don't have plaque in the arteries, it's really much harder to get a heart attack or a stroke. So the real world thing is that you're becoming stroke proof and heart attack proof, and it takes a little bit of time. Also, though, that's really helping your brain in a lot of different ways. I think inflammation is one of the things that really is a problem for the brain, neuroinflammation. And we see that when people drop advanced glycation end products, in my recent paper on that, and when they drop the lipopolysaccharides, paper that just came out, that I was lead author of both of those, we see that people's brains sharpen up rather quickly. So you can't say they become Alzheimer's proof, but you can say their memory is better, they're quicker, their executive functioning is faster and more exhaustive. And so basically they're getting younger instead of older. And I kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. You just mentioned not having saturated fat. If someone's eating a whole food plant-based diet, what foods should they be avoiding in the whole food plant-based world that you would consider having too much saturated fat?
We don't use the word avoid usually. We usually use substitutes. But coconut oil is found in many of the plant foods. And coconut oil is the highest in saturated fat, about double that of lard, for example. Really nasty stuff. I don't know why it's so popular. It has no vitamin E. It has no essential fatty acids. It's worthless nutritionally. Just a bunch of calories that clog you up. And so any of these so-called whole foods that people make and it has coconut oil in it is going to be raising the risk of heart attack, stroke, and by the way, also diabetes. And that's really important. I wrote a book, Diabetes Breakthrough, and also a paper on that. And it is the excess saturated fats that prevent the blood sugar from getting into the cells where it can be used for energy. And instead, it stays in the blood and damages the brain and the eyes and the kidneys and the blood vessels too. So keeping that saturated fat, you can't avoid it all because even friendly avocados have a little bit, even those wonderful walnuts that Kim's having for breakfast have a little bit, but you just need to keep it down to 12 grams or under per day, and then you're doing pretty good. And that's very possible too.
Thank you. Victoria, your upcoming book is called Age Like a Yogi. What can yoga and Ayurveda add to a whole food plant-based lifestyle, especially as it applies to youthful aging?
Well, thank you for asking. I discovered yoga early on, and that was really why I initially became vegetarian. Back when I was a teenager, there were 3 books about yoga in the Kansas City, Missouri Public Library, and I read all of them over and over. And one thing that they all agreed on was that if you were going to be serious about yoga from a spiritual point of view, as well as to keep yourself healthy and be able to meditate for long periods, etc., you needed to be eating a plant-based diet. So that was something that's been part of my journey for a long time. Yoga is wonderful for calming the mind, for flexibility, for strength, for discipline, for feeling good about yourself. So you want to do all these wonderful things. And then I discovered Ayurveda quite a bit later. It was the early 1990s, and that was such a wonderful discovery for me. So for those who aren't familiar with Ayurveda, it's the sister science of yoga. They grew up alongside one another. Ayurveda is still recognized as a viable medical discipline by the World Health Organization. And it's really come back since India was no longer colonized by the British and they outlawed Ayurveda. So it's bounced back brilliantly. And what I love about Ayurveda, probably more than anything else, is that it's a way to tweak your lifestyle so you can customize it so that it works precisely for you. Because one of the things that really makes me sad is to run into somebody who says, oh yeah, I used to eat that way, but... And then they go on and they tell you, you know, maybe their stomach hurt, or maybe they felt tired, or maybe they just whatever. And it's so sad that they've gone back to the standard American way of living. And what Ayurveda can do, and certainly, you know, you tweak it, you adapt it, you make it your own. A lot of people look at Ayurveda and say, oh my gosh, they really like ghee, clarified butter, you know, and you're a vegan. It's like, yeah, so I don't do the butter, clarified or unclarified. So, you know, take what you like and leave the rest. But generally speaking, you can learn in Ayurveda what your body type is and how to just very gently, like for some people, the healthiest foods we can eat, we've been hearing this, you know, all week and will continue to, are these fabulous leafy greens. And those greens from the cabbage family have phytochemicals that you can't get anywhere else. But if every time you eat them, your stomach hurts, you're going to think, wait a minute, there's something not right here. And in Ayurveda, they talk about ways that you can prepare foods differently so that it suits you. And what we want is for people to feel good as they're getting healthy. And so Ayurveda is great for that. And that's what Age Like a Yogi is all about. Yoga for the soul, Ayurveda for the body, and for every decade as we go forward. And just to share, this is kind of fun. I've dedicated my book to my first yoga teacher, Stella Cherfas. She is in London. She's 98 years old, teaches one class a week. She lives in a 4th floor walk-up, and she's been plant-based since 1952. So I got a pretty good role model.
How many books have you written?
Age Like a Yogi will be my 14th.